Hey everyone. So, I'm going to be making a series where I basically just show my whole process behind map making. So, like the whole design process and then the building process as well. I'm making this video in particular just to get some information out the way before I start doing it, so that I don't have to put this as like part of a separate episode, or like I don't have to like keep repeating it. So yeah, just want to get some information out the way. Firstly, this isn't meant to be a guide. You can sort of use it as a guide, but uh, how useful it'll be for that would depend mainly on how much you agree with my own guidelines. And then also, since I don't like intend this to be a guide, I'm not going to give like all the information that I would if it was a guide, although I might give that information later if people really want me to. So like if people want a guide from me for whatever reason, then yeah, I'll start giving more detailed information as a way of actually allowing it to be a better guide than it otherwise would be. So back to the guidelines. These are sort of just like guidelines to give the sort of gameplay that I think is ideal. And so if you disagree with that ideal gameplay, or like how, or like just like the overall quality of like the gameplay, the way I see it, then these guidelines won't be as useful to you as they would be to someone who agrees with it. And then if you like completely disagree, then well, it's not really going to be useful at all, or like maybe just like a little bit or whatever. So yeah. To start, all these guidelines are based on the idea that creative strategy is something which should be highly rewarded. So for example, I see Murder Mines as largely a sandbox game. So as you can see, I think all of my maps so far, there are a significant amount of unlocked blocks, and so breaking and placing those blocks will open and close different amounts of options, so that not only does like the map change and like flow and such over the course of an average match, but you can also creatively take advantage of that to move it in your favor. I'd like to use my map Terry Plaza as an example here, because this is a map where the flow of the map changes in like every match. Like it doesn't, like by the end of the match, it doesn't flow in the same way that it did in a different match or that didn't start the match, because obviously things can be edited and stuff. And the thing about creativity that I want to mention here is that this can be moved in your favor. So like you can take the rocket launcher from there, blast open this wall like this, and now you have like this whole outlook on this area, and you're pretty safe. Like you can come back here, and if you really need to, you can drop down, and then you can blast people or whatever. And then if there's nobody around, you can like if you're using the wagon blast, for example, if there's nobody around, you can just blast this wall. So now you have another option of a place to overlook. Like this is often a major combat area, so you can go over there to fight more people. You can create your own power position that way, and other people will have like the same sort of opportunity. And then like of course other people can come over, they can gradually blow up your walls and stuff, and then you have to adapt to that. And I think some people can be actually creative with it. And depending on what you have control of, whether you have like your own rocket launcher, or you get the murder ship, or whatever, you can do things to like counter people and stuff. And I think that's what I really like about the game, and so that's the main thing that I like to build my maps around, just like allowing people to be creative in the way they approach combat. So next thing is that as much should be done as possible to prevent players from having to worry about spawns. So for example, let's say that there's just player 1, player 2. Let's just keep it as a 1v1 situation for now. Player 1 kills player 2 somehow from right here, and then player 2 most likely spawns right here. Player 1 should be able to have the opportunity to reload and stuff, reload and like maybe if they're, let's say, like down here, let's say they came down here to just like finish player 2 off, they should have the ability to reload and get into a decent position. And I use decent sparingly. Like you definitely don't need to be able to get into like the best position on the map. But you shouldn't be someone that's particularly bad. Like you should be able to have the opportunity to strategize around player two's respawn. At the same time, player two should also have a similar sort of opportunity to strategize around where they know that you are. And so that amount of time is what I would personally consider to be like the respawn period. And then with that said, let's say it's not a 1v1. So you kill one player, that player is respawning. You shouldn't have to worry about that respawning player for about that period of time. Unless you decide to like be aggressive, like you can decide to engage them within that amount of time if they also decide to engage you within that amount of time. But you shouldn't have to really worry about that. And then at the same time, you still have to worry about player 3, player 4, whatever. And then after that amount of time, you probably have to worry about player 2 again. So again, use like those times sparingly. There's no like specific amount of time for that. It's just like sort of like a general guideline to like be safe on the spawn and be safe from people who are currently spawning. So the last bit is about weapon balance, and I think every weapon available should be reasonably usable. And what I mean by that is that someone who's good with the weapon should be able to do well with that weapon. It doesn't necessarily mean that every weapon should be equally viable, because I don't think that's always even like possible to do. And I won't explain why I don't think that's why I often think that's not possible. It has a lot to do with snipers, but there are also some other points to go along with it. I think that clip actually sort of shows what I mean, but again, I'll explain another time if anyone's interested. But yeah, I don't think you can really make every weapon be equally viable in most cases, but I do think that you can make every weapon to be reasonably usable as long as you give enough options for people using those weapons. So yeah, that's what I generally go for. So like if someone wants to use a shotgun on this map, despite it being pretty long range most of the time, they can do well with it. And as you can see, I'm sort of an example of what you can do with the sword on this map. And when it comes to weapons that can only be picked up from the map, so like that's OP sniper, hook shot, rocket launcher, and if enough blocks are locked, the mining gun. And of course, this is assuming default settings. With weapons like those, I think they should generally give a strategic advantage, like more strategic options over other players, rather than being like just a weapon that's generally powerful on the map. So if you have a really close range map, where like a rocket launcher would be especially hard to dodge, I think that would be pretty imbalanced. But unlike other sorts of maps where like you have to be strategic with using the rocket launcher and stuff, I think that's where a rocket launcher would be a good fit. So I'll explain more about how I'm accounting for those guidelines and stuff when I'm actually in the process of building the map. Like I said, it's not really intended to be a guide, so if that doesn't seem particularly helpful to you, like maybe because you don't really agree with the guidelines that I have, well then I hope you just enjoy the building process anyway, because that's the main thing I just want to show, just like the process, and for like anyone who might just be interested in seeing. I hope it's enjoyable to watch, and I hope a lot of you are looking forward to seeing that. I'll try to upload the first episode of that pretty soon. I'm not sure how soon, but probably within the next couple of days if I can. And so yeah, I hope you all enjoy.